Welcome to the Sexy Confidence Podcast. Sexy confidence is a state of mind that enables you to master yourself so you can stay calm during stressful challenges and situations. It's a high performance attitude that helps you take command of any room you step into so you can magnetize opportunities for growth and impact. And I'm so happy you're here. I'm Sandra Gonzalez, a retired Marine officer turned executive coach speaker. Well, hello, good afternoon. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to the live stream. If you're watching the live stream, which I know you are, welcome. And if you're watching the replay, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Now, if you would please give us your undivided attention, because attention equates to retention. And you're going to want to take notes because my guest today, incredible, also known as Mr. Fire, Dr. Joe Vitale, is a globally famous author. He's a marketing guru, movie, TV, radio personality, and one of the top 50 inspirational speakers in the world. He's got best-selling books, and he's a popular leading expert on the law of attraction in many movies, including The Secret. Dr. Joe discovered the missing secret, not revealed in the movie, by the way. Now, Dr. Joe has been on Larry King Live, CNN, CNBC, CBS, ABC, Fox News, Fox and Friends, Extra TV, New York Times and Newsweek, just to name a few. Now, he's well known not only as a thinker, but as a healer, clearing people's subconscious minds of limiting beliefs. Now, what I love the most about Dr. Joe is that his father was a U.S. Marine. And his father served in World War II and wore his insignia up until his passing at the age of 93. Now, please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my amazing guest, Dr. Joe Vitale. You bless me with your presence.
Oh, but thank you. Thank you for the honor of being here. I was looking forward to this. I am looking forward to this. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Joe. And, right before the live got started, you and I were chatting a bit about your father, which is really what brings us together. And I was so honored. I was on your podcast about a year ago. And that was so much fun, Dr. Joe. But I love the things you shared about your father. And if I may share with our listeners, our viewers that are watching today, you said your dad. My question was this to Dr. Joe. I asked him, Dr. Joe, what was it that your father inculcated in you that has enabled you to be successful up until this point? And I asked that question now so you could answer it, Dr. Joe, because I know everybody else wants to know the answer.
Right.
He taught you many things.
Right. He did teach me many things. And many of the things he taught me, he got from the Marines. The Marine Corps deeply influenced him. In fact, it's worth mentioning that he learned how to work out in a specific way in boot camp in the Marines. And he did that workout every day of his life for the next 70 years. And when my father passed away at the age of 93, he was in the gym working out. So the Marines deeply influenced this man. And I would say that there's several things that he taught me, but the number one that you and I were talking about is he preached health. Because he said, if you don't have health, it doesn't matter if you have money. It doesn't matter if you have these relationships. It doesn't matter, because you're not going to enjoy any of it. You will not enjoy your life if you don't have health. And so that was branded on my brain early on. And I heard it and saw it demonstrated by him virtually every day that I was ever around him. And
Yes.
yeah, he was like the Jack LaLanne of the family. He preached physical fitness and physical culture and all the Marine exercises he learned during the really tough time of World War II and the Korean War. And, that was pretty intense, but it influenced him in a positive way, and he passed it on to his kids, myself included.
I love that, Dr. Joe. And I agree with your father. Now I'm really big on mental health,
Mm-hmm.
because it's another aspect of wellness, but physical health,
Yeah.
they're both tied together.
Yes.
And as far as, the Marine Corps taught us physical health, how to work out. It provided the structure. But there's other dimensions, other areas of wellness, that it's so important to understand. But I love that you shared a little bit about your dad. And you did mention that he would make the sandwich.
Well, you asked me if he ate healthy, and it was like, well, it all depends on how you define it, because he came from a different time period and he learned how to eat differently. But one example is every morning his breakfast was 2 slices of Wonder Bread,
Ooh,
white bread, which I would not endorse, but this is what he was eating.
yes.
And he would smear it with peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter. And the more important thing is he layered it with like 12 bulbs of garlic. He would hand peel the garlic, and I watched him do it, and he had arthritis in his hands, and he looked at me and said, this is the hardest part of my day. It was peeling garlic. But he would peel it, and then he would load the sandwich with garlic, more than what you would think is humanly possible to digest. And he credited that morning sandwich of peanut butter, garlic, and white bread as keeping his blood pure, as keeping illness away from him. And he would joke that, nobody would come near him because there's so much garlic reeking out of his pores that you can smell it from a block away. But that was an example of what he would consider to be health food. And considering that he was pretty healthy all the way to 93 and working out in the gym when he expired, I would say it was working for him.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, Dr. Joe. Talk about discipline. Talk about discipline. Thank you for sharing that story. So the next question that I would love to ask you, Dr. Joe, is what were some of the adversities or obstacles you faced on your path to success, and how did you persevere through them?
That's $1 million question, and I get asked it in a variety of ways in other interviews. But what's interesting about this moment is because you mentioned my father, I'm thinking about him, missing him, and I'm also thinking about how he raised me. And I don't know that I ever publicly said this, but I'm going to admit one of the early challenges was being a child of this ex-Marine who wanted to raise his kids as if they were in a platoon. I have 2 brothers, and all 3 of us were treated as if we had just enrolled in boot camp, and we were just told, here's our master sergeant. And for most of our life, I remember struggling with that. There was good things that came from it. I learned hard work. One of the reasons I've written 90 some books, I'm not afraid to work. I have 200 products. I'm in 20 movies. I got my own movie in production, travel around the world. I'm not afraid to take action because I was brought up by this Marine who was also an ex-boxer, a prize fighter, a little too much testosterone in his system.
Yes.
But, it was there. And I would say one of the first struggles was to be his son.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Joe, you're going to make me cry because, geez, this is a conversation I just had with my daughter. You know, my oldest just got out of the Marine Corps, Dr. Joe.
Mhm.
She served 5 years as a U.S. Marine. Now she's studying psychology. My youngest is here at UCSD, but I was having this conversation with my youngest, and she said, Mom, the most challenging thing for me was being your daughter. And and it hurt, you know, and in a way it hurt for her to say that. And I said, I hope you understand this, baby, but I did it out of love. And
Right.
that's all I
Right.
knew at the moment.
That's right.
And forgive me if I couldn't, you know, nurture you more. It's just, you know, now what I realized, when you're in the Marines, you have like this different personality. You're on 12 cylinders, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I couldn't necessarily take off the uniform, come home and be mom and be this other, you know, shift into this other personality. I guess I could have, but it would have been very difficult. So I recently had to apologize. And I said, I'm sorry, baby, but it's helped you, it served you. And she said, absolutely, Mom. You know, now I overcome challenges because of the way you raised me. So you're going to make me cry, Dr. Joe, because
You got me teary-eyed too, because I'm identifying with you. I also am remembering that once I did leave home as an adult, I didn't go back for 10 years because I was mad. I was angry with my father. I didn't have a great relationship with him by that point. I wasn't forgiving him for how he had raised us. I didn't see the value. I didn't see the positive in it at that time. And so during the time I was gone, I went homeless. I was homeless for a while. I was in poverty for 10 years, but my stubborn streak said, I'm not going back. I'm not asking for help. I will die on the streets. That's how bad it felt to me.
Yes.
This man who really didn't know any better. He wasn't a psychologist. He came out of the Marines and he just thought the whole world is the Marines at this point. And he's going to treat his family as the Marines. I now know he did the best he could. And what he did was fantastic. And I learned things like discipline, health. I still get up early, even today at the age of 70. I don't need to get up early, but I still get up early because I learned to do it when I was his son as a child, and he would get us up early. He would take us on jobs with him. He had me working on the railroad with him when I was 5 years old. I mean, working, not just carrying a lunch or something. He had me on the railroad tracks at the age of 5 because my father was the supervisor for the tracks and he can take his kid out there if he wanted. But he wanted me to learn how to work. I did learn how to work. I learned I didn't like it, which kind of aimed me more towards books. But I didn't go back. I didn't forgive him for a very long time.
Wow.
The great news is in his very senior years, probably when he was 70 till 93, he mellowed. He was far more mellow. He was more the life of the party. He was always a great storyteller. In fact, I helped him be an author when he was 90 years old. Because I said, Dad, you tell stories all the time, stories about the Marines, stories about growing up, stories about this, that, and the other. I said, why don't you record all these stories and give me the cassettes? He did. And I turned it into a book. And on his 90th birthday, I said, Dad, you remember all those cassettes, which is what he made, you sent me? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I turned it into your autobiography. And I handed him his book on his 90th birthday.
Oh my goodness.
It was probably the only time in my life I saw him speechless, because he always had a line or a story or a gift of gab. But this is how I turned. I turned and wanted to give him something back. And fortunately, I did by turning him into an author when he was 90 years old, and I was able to say thank you. I actually did an autograph party with him in my hometown.
Amazing.
Stood together, and more people came to see him than came to see me there, which was fine. I was delighting in it. And as we were driving home, it was just him and I in the car, and he said, I want to thank you. He says, you have given me a life and an experience I never even dreamed was possible. And I got chills right now because I thought I was able to say thanks. and make peace and have a relationship before he left at 93.
I'm in tears, Dr. Joe. What a beautiful story. And I can understand your father as well, because, especially being in the Marine Corps for 20 years, we pride ourselves. Respect is very important to us. And for our children not to have respect, I know, at least for me, that it's like, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And, children are different now. I mean, things have changed, but before I forget, what was the name of that book? Because I have to get that book. The one
the one I helped my father write is called The Most Contented Man. The Most Contented Man. It's on Amazon. Once he got the book, because I had only printed the one copy, and he read it and approved it. And I said, well, is it okay to just put it on Amazon? If somebody wants to find it and buy it, they can. And he became very proud, because a lot of people, not a lot, it wasn't like it was a bestseller, but in his area, when people would hear the book and they would read it, they'd want to meet him. And he was always glad to talk about the book, because it was about his life, and he can talk about the Marines, he can talk about his experiences. He was at Paris Island, and he was in the early days, back when he described it in the book. It's not like you want to go there.
Right.
The Paris Island in World War II and the Korean War time, it was like there was no road to even get to it.
Old school.
Yeah, it was all different.
School.
But it's called The Most Contented Man.
Well, we have some Marines watching the live stream. One of them is Dr. Lucas Dyer. He's here, as several other Marines.
Oh, nice.
And
I salute you. Yes.
And we salute you, Dr. Joe, for carrying on that legacy, which is so important. Mr. House is here. Mr. Randy House. He said, my dad made peanut butter and onion sandwiches. Really not that bad. And I agree, Randy. It's getting accustomed. Yeah. And I think this is another thing, Dr. Joe. Western culture, our palates, especially here in the US, are broken. Our palates are broken. And that's another topic for discussion later. Right. I definitely want to ask you this next question, Dr. Joe. I have so many questions, so sexy confidence is a high performance attitude. It's this ability to master yourself and stay calm during stressful challenges and situations. What do you think leaders need so they can lead others, especially now more than ever? There's so many leaders are stressed, Dr. Joe. What do you think?
That's a great question. I don't want to oversimplify it, but I really do think the golden answer is learning to be calm under fire. Calm under fire. And that is something that is probably a lifetime practice, not something you do once and you think, well, I did it and now I'm good and I'm going to be calm under fire all the time. I think it's a daily thing. I think that we need to make time for what I'll call meditation, and meditation can take a wide variety of forms. Yes. But for me, what I'm really saying and pointing at is finding the core within ourselves that is the unchanging part of us. That inner core is the part of us that is calmly confident. All the other stuff in front of it is our ego, our monkey mind, our past experiences, our fears. There's a saxophone player who has passed on, Wayne Shorter, and he had gone through quite a few tragedies, including his wife dying in a plane crash that was a commercial airline. It takes off and it blows up, and he's going through all this stuff. And he was handling it fairly well. When people asked about it, because they weren't handling it well, he said, look for the constant. Look for the constant. And I never forgot it. It was another way of saying, look for the center of the storm. Even when I remember I lived in Houston and there was a hurricane that came through. And it was like, once the big waves go through, at the center of that storm, there's absolute peace. Then the big waves come again. And what we need to find is that center of the storm, that calm no matter what. And we have to learn to find it and stay with it so that we are in a war room or a boardroom or in some situation that normally might rattle our cage. We can remember, okay, center of the cyclone, go into that place of peace. And from there, the cool thing is you have clarity to know what to say and do.
Yes, Dr. Joe.
When you don't have that place of constance and that place of calm, then you're just being swayed by emotions, you're being swayed by opinions, you're being swayed by whatever energy that is being thrown at you, and you're off center. And you gotta take a deep breath and find your center again. That's the practice.
For the rest of our lives, it's constant practice.
I believe so. I don't know,
Yes.
Maybe there is some state that we can all achieve, but I haven't achieved it. I think, I still got to do this every day. I got to make time to go inside.
Yes, Dr. Joe. I know one of the things, and this goes back to your father, that I have found through experience, one of the things that enables me to tap into clarity is I've now know how to lubricate my mind and heart with peace. And that coupled with eating healthier and working out, I achieved this heightened level of clarity that when I'm there, I just honor it, and I'm receptive to whatever ideas come. And it's just a beautiful thing. So it is a constant practice that I will for the rest of my life. Practice is the price you pay for a better tomorrow.
Right.
And discipline is key. Discipline is key. Beautiful.
Well, I want to comment on that because you said it's the price you pay for a better tomorrow. And I get that. But, my father worked out one day, and he worked out every day. 4:30 in the morning, he got up and did his workout. He came up, there was a basement where he lived. He came upstairs and he says, I feel great. And he says, I don't work out to live longer. I don't work out to feel better tomorrow. I work out for how I feel today.
Yes.
And I never forgot that because I thought that's actually brilliant. It's brilliant. When you're spending your time trying to extend your time, you're actually coming from a place of worry. You're not really enjoying this moment right here.
Yes.
And his exercising was his dopamine. It was his way of feeling electricity in his bones.
I agree.
Feeling happier. And that was for that day. It wasn't for a 93-year experience because he didn't know how much time he had. It was for that day. And I think that's why we do all the discipline, whether it is the meditation, whether it is, we eat every day, we sleep every day. Why not meditate every day? Why not do the stuff that serves us each day for the day?
I agree. And that's where the gift lies, Dr. Joe, in our ability to be present in this moment. And the thing that allows me to be present in this moment is my morning rituals, which, you have your morning rituals, getting in that exercise so I can generate that energy. And when I generate that energy, it fills up my love tank. Therefore, when my love tank is filled and overflowing, I'm going to be better able to be patient with my daughters. I'm going to be better able to be present when a client is trying to be very open and honest with something so sensitive that I need to provide that safe space for. I need to be present for this live stream. I'm blessed with my amazing guest. And it's when we shift to the present moment and masticate life. That's what matters. And love everything you're sharing, Dr. Joe. Golden.
Everything you're sharing too is juicy. It's priceless. I totally agree that the present is where we need to be. I've often said that I talk about miracles. One of the signs behind me says expect miracles, and I have a book called The Miracle. So it's a subject that's close to my heart. But people often think I'm referring to something that happens off in the distance in the future, and then call it a miracle. And I can see that, but I'm referring to the moment.
Yeah.
I'm really saying this moment is the miracle, because the past is gone, doesn't exist, and we don't even remember it correctly. I mean, recent psychologists are saying it's fading. Every time we try to remember something, we think we got it accurate, but we're not even close. So the memory and the past, it's gone. The future isn't even here. The future is going to change. We don't even know what it is. I mean, we can pretend we're going to erect something in the future, but we can't say that. We don't know that.
Yes.
All we really have is this moment. The more we can be in this moment, the more we can create something that'll show up in the future, and the more that we can fully experience the joy of right now.
Yes.
I read a tremendous amount. I've been reading people that, they wrote their books and now they're dead. They're gone. They wrote their books centuries ago or 100 years ago, and they're absolutely gone. And one of the reminders is, you don't have long here. It all goes like this.
It does.
We have to be in the moment. Because if we're not in the moment, we are going to be at the end of the curtain's going to drop, and we're going to wonder what happened.
Yes, Dr. Joe.
Because we weren't there. We weren't there.
Right. Tomorrow's never promised.
Tomorrow actually never comes. When we get that so-called tomorrow, it's actually this moment. It's today.
Exactly, today. The past. So many people live in the past. Past is done. Yeah. Future is an illusion.
Right.
Today's a gift.
That's it.
Love this experience right here. So shifting gears here with my next question. I did ask you this one about your father. I know there's a lot of business leaders here. And this question came to mind, brands, because, my brand, Sexy Confidence, it's this brand that has evolved as a result of my father had sexy confidence. He was like your dad, Dr. Joe. My father was assertive. My father, everywhere he went, people highly respected my dad. And that's how I realized, you know what? My dad has sexy confidence. How can I cultivate that attitude? How can I, be more like him? Very assertive, and he had clarity. He was very decisive. But I bring this up because that's one of the things that enabled me to create my brand. For the viewers or listeners that are watching, as they're creating their brands, for you, what are your favorite brands, and who do you think is doing things right?
So you're talking about who I know out in the world, or who I observe that has their brand? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, okay. That stands out for you. And I know there's so many brands, but I mean, for me, Jeff Bezos comes to mind. This man, talk about innovation, talk about visionary.
Yes,
Who for you, Dr. Joe?
Well, I think the two or three ones that always come to mind are going to be the ones that come to most people's mind, because their brands are famous or infamous, depending on who you talk to. Amazon being one of them, and Jeff Bezos being one of them. I was in on the beginning, and I was one of those who made fun of him for 7 years because he was going to make money selling books online. And we're like, you're nuts. And he didn't make money for 7 years. And so for 7 years, it was easy to poke at him and just say, look at this guy. He's got the vision to make money online selling books. And I'm a book guy. I want to sell books. I want him to be correct and make money. But he didn't do it for 7 years. The fact that he persisted and enlarged his scope and is actually shooting, ships into space, and he's branched out. Man, that's a brand, and that's a vision, and that's impossible thinking and a courage that's off the charts. Obviously, I
Mm.
admire that. It's the same thing. One of the longest living ones would be Branson, because I've seen Branson go through everything from Virgin
Yes.
Records to Virgin Airlines. And I've read his autobiographies and the various business books about him. And it's like, this guy's alive. He is alive. He is courageous. He has often said that when an idea comes to him, he basically says yes and then figures it out later. It's like, how are we going to put a passenger ship going around the earth and sell tickets for people to buy to be on it? And he's like, I don't know, but let's say yes and figure it out. I admire that. And so we know
Yes.
him, we know Virgin, we know Jeff, we know Amazon, and the same thing with Elon Musk and Tesla and the other things he's doing. These three easily come to mind
Yes.
because they're globally noticed. They're globally noticed. And personally, I'm fascinated with those three in particular because I wrote a book on P.T. Barnum. If you remember who he was he had museums and circuses in the 1800s.
Yes.
Movies about him. And I wrote a business book about him called There's a Customer Born Every Minute. I look for the P.T. Barnums throughout history, and I look for them today. Well, Jeff is a P.T. Barnum. Elon is a P.T. Barnum. And
Mm.
what's the Virgin Airlines guy is Branson is a P.T.
Branson.
Barnum. And so I admire it because they think big, they act big, they dare to do what other people say is impossible. And they seem to also be bulletproof from criticism. It's like,
Right.
you can say, just like me, putting Jeff Bezos down during those first 7 years. I thought he kept going.
Love that, Dr. Joe.
Yeah.
So talk about, they have sexy confidence. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say they have absolute confidence in their vision and then their ability to pull it off. And I think that's what's really key. For the average person, I think what they need to understand, and I'm going back to my father again. You got me on my father for this whole episode, which I've not talked about him ever. And so thank you for that. But one of the things I noticed with him is that he kept his word to himself and to other people.
Yes.
And I think that's what builds this dynamic confidence, is that you can trust yourself. And
yes,
I don't know that everybody understands that because, for example, and this is one of the things I learned from my father, if I made an appointment to meet you, we'll say 1 o'clock in San Diego, I would be there 5 to 10 minutes early.
Yes.
Why? Because I said I would.
Exactly.
That's keeping my word. You do that enough, and then you start to build this confidence. You're like, I can trust myself. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Then when you enlarge it and you say, you know what, Sandra, I'm going to open this business and I want to do it with you. That's not going to be fluff. That's not going to be air and just BS, because I've already built the confidence within me because I kept my appointments. And I'm saying this because so many people don't honor their relationships or their appointments.
No.
And they have no idea that not only are they insulting the person they were supposed to meet, but here's the thing they never consider. They are weakening their inner power. They cannot trust themselves because they've not kept their word. So one of the things I notice is that, and I noticed it with my father, is that if he said he was going somewhere or he's going to do something or something was going to get done and he was the one doing it or making the decision, he did it.
Yes.
That builds that dynamic confidence. You end up being a powerhouse.
His character is everything.
Yes.
His character. And I love that you're pointing that out, Dr. Joe, because in my personal and professional experience, I wake up at 4. I actually wake up earlier than when I was in the Marine Corps. I do it because I love my mornings, Dr. Joe. I have fallen in love with my morning routine, and I just achieve a high level of clarity, and more importantly, I give myself evidence. I got up to go to the gym.
Yes.
go to
Yes.
the gym and
Yes.
accomplish,
Yep.
and then one of the things that I often share with clients, whomever, make your bed. Start by making your bed. And you develop this morning ritual of making your bed. So many profound, um, great things come from that. It sets a tone for the day.
Yeah.
You build healthier habits. It bleeds into other areas.
Yeah.
There's a sense of accomplishment because you did something that's tied to structure, organization.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, oh, I am disciplined. I am structured. I am organized. Why? Because I'm giving myself evidence every day.
You are reminding me of so many things from growing up and with my father that I haven't thought about. I'm remembering that I was told to make my bed, and we did go through a period when I was very young when he came through and threw a quarter on the bed to see if there was the bounce from the sheets being tucked in that he learned in the Marines. It's like he's got to tuck this in. It's got to be as neat as possible. And they're coming in with a quarter or a 50-cent piece, throwing it on the bed. If it doesn't bounce, then you didn't do it right. And I remember him, I wanted to say that influenced me so much when I was in college. People thought I had a maid because I made my bed.
What a compliment.
All the other guys were like, "What, you got to get back in it sooner or later." And I'm like, I was taught to do this. I was taught to spit shine my shoes because he learned to do it in the Marines. And, I remember the shoe polish and a rag and spitting on my shoe. I mean, I'm a little kid. I'm starting to remember all this. Is like good therapy, Sandra. This is very good for me.
Oh, you honor me with these stories, Dr. Joe. This is such, I've been so excited all week to talk with you, and you honor me with these stories. Keep going, please.
Well, I'm just remembering things like that, making your bed, getting up early, working hard, no matter what you were doing, keeping your word, spit shined your shoes, dressing well. I mean, we didn't have any money. He took us to the Goodwill store, and you can buy a shirt for a dime.
Good stuff.
And I remember having a sport jacket that I really liked that he helped me pick out, and it cost $1. So it was, we were, and this I think is another thing you were asking about confidence. When you dress well, and I don't mean some sort of, Rodeo Drive kind of expensive, crazy outfit. I'm just talking about feeling good in your clothes.
Yes.
Because I remember buying this suit, not a suit, but a jacket at Goodwill for $1. And when I put it on, I felt a lot more powerful than without it. And I'm a kid, but I was a kid who realized that I just put on this very inexpensive, nobody knows what it costs, but it looks pretty good. I feel good in it. And that was the $1 million trick. If I felt good in it, I got a little bit of a strut, a little bit of a swagger, it just gives you that little bit. And now you have me on a roll, because I'm remembering when I was in Houston and I was really struggling. I didn't have any money, but I was starting to give some speeches to small business groups, this, that, and the other. And apparently I was doing well enough, and I was perfecting my speaking ability, that PBS television asked me to do a presentation, and they were going to film it. They had those old cameras where they got camera operators and they roll them around and there's a stage. I mean, this was a big deal. And I knew I had to look good because this is going to be filmed, and that film might outlast me. So I got my credit card. I went to the Men's Warehouse, told them what I was doing, and they dressed me. And it's a good thing, Sandra, because that video is still online today.
Oh, I would love to see that.
It's online. It's on YouTube. It's all kind of places. I think it's How to Create Advertising That Sells, something like that might be the title, and my name, of course. And you'll see a very young, very overweight, but well-dressed guy.
Yes.
And that well-dressed made me feel like I'm an authority. I'm an authority. And of course, I'm talking for PBS. Cameras are filming me. I have an audience there.
Yes,
But
Dr. Joe.
I'm bringing it up because I don't know that I would have been as good or as powerful or as memorable if I didn't dress well that day.
Ooh, and this is a perfect segue into my next question, if I may, because you speak about how we dress, you speak about how you felt,
Mhm.
being this authority. So, and I love the points you're making. So, my next question for you, Dr. Joe, how do you take command of any room you step into? And I know two questions. And what would you recommend leaders for them to be more genuine and influential? We'll start with the first question. How does Dr. Joe, what does he think? What does he do, to prepare himself to take command of any room?
It's a great question. I would say the very first thing is going back to how I look. So I would want to dress in such a way that at least makes me feel stronger and more confident. So that's a subjective thing. In other words, I'm going to wear, and for me, because I wear t-shirts a lot, it could just be a sports jacket, it could be a vest, but it's going to be really nice. It's going to be part of my branding because I'm a bit of a renegade, and I'm an author, and I can dress however I like, but I want to dress in a way that makes me unique, stands out, but makes me feel strong and secure. So
Ooh,
that's the very first thing, because that's going to help me meet the confidence level part way and boost it a little bit. And then the next thing is the mindset. And the mindset has to be along the lines of, I belong here. I belong here,
mm,
or I'm the authority here. When I'm invited to speak, so I'm going into a room and I'm going to go on stage, then definitely it's the mindset of, I'm the authority here. I'm the
ooh,
one they all came to listen to. So that is going to make me feel more confident because I'm going to walk on stage with looking good, feeling good, and knowing they're here for me. It sounds egotistical because I could say, I'm not there for them. They're there for me. But to build the confidence, they are there for me.
yes.
And so I want to keep that in mind. And then, if I need to, and I think anybody would consider this, is to remind themselves of their own value. My own work,
Yes.
I have discovered that most people don't think they're good enough. Most people don't
Mhm.
think they're likable. Most people don't think they're lovable. Most people don't think they're enough in some way, shape, or form.
So true.
Yeah, they don't feel good enough. And I would say that we're all on a progress of stretching and growing. It's not a matter of waking up and going, okay, I'm good enough today. It is more a matter of,
I've arrived.
right, I'm arrived and I'm done. No, that there's no finish line. I think that's the important statement when it
Mm,
comes to personal growth and self-development. There's no finish line. You keep
yes.
growing, you keep stretching. I've mentioned I'm 70. I've done all of these different things and all of these different stores and books, and there's so many things I can talk about. I'm still reading self-help books.
I
I'm
love
still working
that.
on myself. I still explore my own limiting beliefs.
Love
I
that.
still keep stretching to find out what more is there and how much more can I do. So I think each one of us has to remind ourselves that we're not complete.
No.
We are in a process of growing, progressing, stretching, evolving, and we're
Mhm.
good enough as we are, and we're evolving and need even more.
Yes. Going
Thoughts like
back, and you said, um, earlier on, as far as what you were thinking and saying about yourself before you take command of any room,
mhm,
you're right, Dr. Joe. It's not egotistical. And this is where there comes a point in our lives and in our businesses where we have to become our best friends,
right,
be our best friend and stop being that bully. Because for so many years, I know I was a bully. Like, I was such a perfectionist. I demanded so much of myself. And it wasn't until I experienced a difficult divorce coupled with my father's loss,
wow,
that I realized I just want to be happy and I want to live with peace. And it was in that pivotal moment that I said, I need to be my best friend. I need, if I'm going to go take command of that room, I need to be my cheerleader. I need to be supportive. I need to change my language. So,
what you're saying is absolutely correct. I want to encourage everybody to read Napoleon Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil.
ooh,
Outwitting the Devil. It was a book. Napoleon Hill, first of all, was the guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich, for those who may not have known. And he did write a book called Outwitting the Devil that was never published during his lifetime because everybody thought it would be too controversial, including him. But it was published after he died a few years ago. And I think it's the best of everything he's ever written. Outwitting the Devil is haunting. And the whole point is, and the reason I'm bringing it up, is the devil is your own mind.
yes.
It can be your best friend, or it can be the sneaky, conniving saboteur who brings you down. And the more you can be aware of the negative voice, the more you can not listen to that and build up what I've often said is the cheerleader inside my own mind, the one that says, you can do it. This is possible. Why not you? Let's go for it.
Exactly.
So Outwitting the Devil is a book I would recommend people read by Napoleon Hill.
Love those recommendations. Yes, I've written it down, Dr. Joe. Thank you so much. So, what, in addition to everything that you've shared, how can leaders be more genuine and more influential?
The easy answer is they need to be more vulnerable. When I say vulnerable, I don't mean like I'm a scaredy cat and I really am afraid of everything. Not that kind of vulnerability, but the kind of authenticity that says, I'm going to do this, but I have a couple reservations. I'm trying to think of an example. Your questions are so good because you have me in the hot seat in a sense. And I'm thinking in this moment,
I love the answers.
of the best way to answer. And so I'm reflecting on myself. I think in telling you and everybody that's watching or listening to this about my relationship with my father and how I didn't like him for the longest time, and I left for 10 years and I didn't forgive him. I think that is a statement of vulnerability that makes me a little bit more human and a little bit more powerful, and possibly as a leader, a little bit more dependable. And this is my example, and I'm just thinking out loud because I didn't intend that to be an example. But I think for a leader to really lead, they have to be strong, and they have to have their vision, and they have to have courage, but they also need to have that human vulnerability. Let me speak to it this way. Early on, I've worn a lot of hats in my career, and early on, I was a copywriter. I'm still a copywriter, but I was writing sales letters and so forth, and really loving copywriting and really learning about copywriting. And this was all back in the 1980s and early 1990s. And I even invented hypnotic writing as a form of copywriting and wrote a book on it. I learned that people will be more inclined to believe your sales copy if you admit a weakness. This is a $1 million tip for anybody that's writing copy or trying to sell something, because what most people do is they say, I have the greatest, and this will do the most amazing thing. It's flawless in all these different areas. And the truth is, it's not. There's a weak link in everything and everybody. And so what we want to say is something like, and I'm going to make this up, I would hold up a water bottle and say, I just invented this water. This is the best tasting water. This finally has electrolytes and everything in it. And it's got the salt that you need when you work out. But you know what? It's going to leave a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth. That admittance of a little bit of a weakness makes everything else believable. So take that to the leader. So the leader is standing up there saying, we're about to march into this war zone, and we got it all thought out, and we got all the strategy, and we got all the people, and we got everything we need. but we're short on blah, 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 whatever it is. Because he admits some sort of weakness there, the rest of the speech and the argument and the presentation is 100% believable. So
Wow.
being authentic in part is admitting some aspect of your humanness.
I have a selfish question. Does that work from selling from the stage, Dr. Joe?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely it does.
I bring this up because I'll never forget this. March 20th of 2021, my dad was in the ICU and I had to give a speaking engagement in Pasadena, California, in front of 100 women. And I took my mom with me because she's, you have to honor your word. You said you're going to speak, you honor that. I said, Mom, but if they call us from the ICU, she said, you honor your word. I said, okay, you're coming with me. So when I went, I remember feeling like calm. I said, I'm just going to give these women value. And I'm also going to share the truth about what's happening to me in the moment. And I said, ladies, with all due respect, if I get a phone call, you will have to excuse me because my father's in the ICU. So being vulnerable, Dr. Joe, I sold out my empowerment retreat like this.
Yes. And I believe that's the connection there. None of us want to be in that situation where you really do have a medical emergency.
Yes.
I've been in that twice. And in fact, when my father died, I was in Italy doing a webinar live. And my phone was blowing up and I'm wearing an Apple Watch. So I was also seeing it blow up and nobody was leaving messages, but I just knew that he was gone. And well, now I'm remembering that.
Yes,
I think what you pulled out of me is something I don't talk about very much on a lot of levels here. And also the whole idea about increasing power and authenticity by revealing the humanness of yourself.
Yes.
And there's a lot more I can say about it, but I think, I've probably said enough.
Oh, Dr. Joe, and I could have you here for hours and hours. I value your time. I value the listeners, the watchers that are, everybody that's watching. I like to be punctual. And with that being said, you have given us tremendous value. Thank you for your wealth of knowledge, your wisdom. Everything that you've shared with us has filled up my love tank, so to speak. Where could our viewers, our listeners, where could they connect with you? How can people learn more about you, Dr. Joe?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not hiding, so I'm all over the internet and fairly easy to find. I would say the easy thing to do is I post every day on Instagram and Facebook. So just look for Dr. Joe Vitale, DrJoeVitale, and you'll see new videos, fresh footage, all the things that I'm doing, and you can keep up that way. So that's on Instagram and Facebook, and I guess it's on TikTok as well, though I don't do as much there. And all of my books are on Amazon, so you can type in Dr. Joe Vitale or Joe Vitale, and there's a lot of books there. I have a new one coming out this new year, is Zero Limits Living. Yes. And of course, the podcast I do that I interviewed you on is also called Zero Limits Living.
Yes,
it's ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. My main website, because I have lots of them, is simply my nickname, Mr. Fire, MRFIRE.com. And I'm a musician. My music's on Amazon and Spotify and iTunes. And Dr. Joe and the Band of Legends is out there. I have my own movie in production. It also is called Zero Limits. It'll probably come out later in the year. So I don't know. I'm doing a whole lot here, and I'm enjoying every moment of it.
I love it, Dr. Joe. So accomplished, so many accomplishments. Another one stood out. First self-help singer, songwriter, as seen in 2012's Rolling Stone magazine.
Right. That was when I came out with my first singer-songwriter album. And it's important for people to realize I didn't have a music background, a singing background, songwriter background, didn't have a band. It was simply on my bucket list when I turned 60, 10 some years ago, that I wanted to try my hand at music. So I did what I do with everybody. I said, what's my intention? I want to learn how to sing, write songs, get a band together, go in the studio and record. And then fear came up. And I always admit it because I tell people, look, when you do something you've never done before, you're naturally going to be nervous. You don't know how to do it yet. And so I faced my fears doing the various techniques I've learned. And the short story is, Sandra, in the last 10 years, I've recorded 15 albums, 6 of them singer-songwriter albums. Some of my music has been nominated for the Posy Award, which is the Grammys of positive music. Some of the music has been in song or movie soundtracks. I'm forgetting some of the other stuff there, but I've had a blast doing it. And I stopped when the pandemic hit because I couldn't get my band together at the time. But there's guitars behind me right now and books behind me revealing that those are some of my loves.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Joe, for those that are watching, what are your parting words?
Oh, I would say my secret to success has been following my passion. Whenever I'm excited about, curious about, just absolutely fascinated with, I pursued it. I would say follow your passion, follow your calling, follow the thing that you can't turn off, the stuff that you're really, really excited about, really interested in, even when you can't explain it.
Yes.
Even when there's no rational explanation, there's no evidence it's going to go anywhere, but it's following that pulse, which I really believe is the pulse given from God. That's the seed of desire planted in you from a higher power. And when you follow it, there's some real magic and miracles that take place. You can't foresee them, but I would say follow your passion.
Love that, Dr. Joe. Well, it's been an honor having you here today. I'm so blessed. For our viewers, connect with Dr. Joe Vitale. I will add his information on the show notes. What an incredible episode. Truly blessed. Have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Dr. Joe.